Yo, Peeper here, and I want to talk about this video. This video is pretty much for people who are either getting out of the beginner stage, trying to figure out what they want to do and play, and then figuring out what are staples, techs, cores of decks, budget decks, everything that's going into it. And I wanted to make this video because I know there's not a lot of resources that help people getting into the game from a standpoint of me, for example, where I started playing last year, and I kind of figured out like what cards I should be buying, what cards I should be looking for, as of compared to say someone who's been in the hobby the last 10 years playing. Right, I have that experience where I know what's new, what's not new, trying to figure out how to do this A, B, and C. So I really want you to watch this video and understand that in this day and age, with Pokemon cards being so hard to get, that going online and buying singles might be the better option. And I show you what cards you should be looking for, right? Your Intelli Online and stuff like that. So I really appreciate you watching this video and get some knowledge out of it, right? It's a good video, wealth of knowledge. And if you have any comments, feedback, please leave it in the comment section. And thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Hey guys, we're about to get on with this PowerPoint. So the topics we're going to talk about is you're getting out of your beginner stage and you're entering a different portion of this game. You are getting used to not just relying on theme decks, but actually learning what it takes to be a player outside of that beginning step, right? We're going to be talking about staples and what are they exactly. And then we're going to go over friendly budget decks, and then we're going to end it with closing notes. Branching out of theme decks. So, like most people, we always start out with theme decks, right? We go to the store, we buy a theme deck, we buy a couple of packs, we get home, we open everything up, and we start playing. And this is primarily how we learn how to play. If you're playing on PTCGO, you know, your tutorials with a theme deck, right? We also have started with a theme deck. And when you get to the point where you're outgrown your theme deck and you're ready to play with cards and you want to create your own deck, there's some pros and cons that go into it, right? I mean, let's look at the cons. For example, when you're branching out, the cards in your theme deck really aren't viable. Honestly, they're getting better with this. Pokemon is getting better with this. But in reality, like, if you look at a theme deck right now and you flip it over and you look at the card list, how many of those cards are actually viable other than your supporters, right? Your Marnies, your Professor Researches. You know, those cards are viable. And, you know, there's some kind of staples here and there. There's like quick balls and stuff like that. But overall, when you're playing with the Pokemon in that deck, like two or three things are going to happen. You're not going to get the Pokemon you're looking for. Your strongest Pokemon only has one copy in the deck. And you're more likely drawing 6-7 energies every time you do like a huge draw. So, theme decks, they're cool if you just want to play around with your cousin or your little brother. But in reality, they're not viable. Also, when you get out of that theme deck mode, you're unfamiliar with text, right? Let's say you get all your V's together and you make a strong V deck, right? And then you're going against someone and all of a sudden they drop a Zapdos V and you're confused, right? Because most of your V's are probably dark. You're like, oh, Zapdos V with 1 fighting and 3 colorless, there's no way he'll get all those energies. And then the Zapdos V comes to the active spot, and for 1 fire energy, it literally knocks out one of your dark Pokemon. Why is that? It's because Zapdos V is a tech. It's against dark Pokemon, right? Eternatus plays nothing but Crobats, Umbreons, and there's so many V's on the field that literally Zapdos attack is only 1 fighting energy. So that's pretty much like the techs, right? You're going to be constantly losing. Now, this isn't to say that you're not skilled or you don't have talent. When you're leaving the theme deck format, you kind of don't understand like what's going on, right? You go against a deck you've never seen before, you're more likely going to lose. You don't know the strategy of that deck. And it kind of falls in line with the same thing as not knowing the meta. You don't know what's strong. I mean, you hear people talk about like Urshifu, Shadow Rider, Dragapult. Yeah, I mean, those are like 3 decks. But that's not the entire meta. Like, what your meta is based on, like, what do you play? You play online, and then, you know, generally the YouTubers will have your meta for you. You're going to, you know, Austin, and, you know, everyone's playing different. You know, my meta right now is single strike. Everyone I know in this area is playing single strike. So that you're not going to be knowing the meta unless you play for a while. But regardless of the cons, there's pros, right? You get out of theme decks and you make your first deck, you get that sense of accomplishment. You know, you broke your mold, built your first deck, getting some wins, and that feels good, right? Not only do you want to be strong, but you want to feel good while you do it. So that's one of the pros. Like I said earlier in Discord, you get involved with your community. You get to talk to people with your community. Y'all guys are working together, you know, making teams and everything, trying to trade cards. So you get a small sense of involvement with your community. Or you can come up with new ideas. Like, you know, you're not net decking. You're not going to YouTube looking at everyone's deck. You know, what's the latest tricky gem deck? Let me copy that. Eventually, when you start playing enough, you can see patterns in new cards, and then you can start creating combos. And when those combos work, oh man, that is such a great feeling. And when you get out of your theme deck little mold, you get better card selection, right? I recently saw the Rayquaza V theme deck, and it had Gordies. Now, if you look at a Rayquaza V deck that's, you know, not a theme deck, it doesn't play Gordy. It plays like Peony, it plays Rose, and it definitely, you know, you get this big option of what supporter cards you want to use. You're not limited to some 60 card deck that Pokemon makes. I'm not bashing them if they're listening, but it's definitely, you know, it's better selection. And not only that, like I said, you get to go to YouTube, PokemonCard.io, channel Fireball, look up your favorite YouTuber. There's definitely more support when you're researching decks. There is a wealth of information online and you can find it easily. So when you're starting out, before you make any purchases, look at some decks you want to look at. Look at some footage, and maybe you can find exactly what you're looking for, because it's out there. And if it isn't, create it. Become a pioneer. It's the wealth of information is crazy. And we're going to be talking about some lingo, which I've already said earlier. We're going to be talking about staples, text, and core. So once we go through these slides, we're going to be kind of figuring out what am I saying? Like, why did I say Zapdos V is a tech, right? Or Professor's Research. Why do I keep mentioning those? Because, you know, those are staples and techs. And then when I talk about core, you'll see when I mention a certain deck, I mention certain cards that go well with it, because that's the core and that's how it works. And now we're going to talk about staples. Staples are cards that you automatically know you're going to have them in your deck. For example, if you're running Inteleon lines, you're going to have 4 Drizzles, 4 Sobbles, you know, stuff like that. Professor's Research is another supporter, which is a staple. You usually run 4 of those. Like, you can't, when you build a deck, you know, these are the cards you just know you want to have. And as another example, Quick Ball, item card that allows you to look for a basic Pokemon. So think of staples like cards you have to have in order to, you know, get the deck rolling. And then we go into techs. Like I mentioned earlier, Galarian Zapdos V is an extreme dark Pokemon tech that's weak to fighting, especially when they run with a lot of Vs. For example, Eternatus VMAX. You know, Galarian Zapdos is going to put the knife in the back of Eternatus. Another attack that we have over here is Spiritomb. It's anti-Mad Party. Its attack for colorless, does 1 damage counter for every Pokemon in your opponent's discard pile. And then you get to put all those Pokemon back in the deck. And if you know anything about Mad Party's strength comes from all the Mad Party Pokemon in the discard pile. So that's another version of a tech. But not all techs are Pokemon. You have, for example, the picture here, Flannery, single strike supporter, gets rid of a special energy and a stadium. So think about cards like Leafeon, for example. They usually run a capture energy and a grass energy, and they heavily rely on Galar Mine. So you play this Flannery, you get rid of the capture energy, and then you get rid of Galar Mine, and then they're stuck. And they're going to have to look for it again. They're going to get the whole combo again. So not all techs are just Pokemon. They could be supporters or item cards. And when I mention core builds, every deck has an identity. For example, we're talking about Ice Rider. You can't play Ice Rider without Inteleon and Melanie. So it's kind of like the core build. If you look at different variations of like Ice Rider, you're still going to see the same Inteleon line. You're going to see the same Melanies. And you're going to see the same about Ice Riders. The core doesn't change. That's the identity of the deck. And this is so more true with Rapid Strike and Single Strike. When you look at Rapid Strike, there's always the 4 Rapid Strike energies. You're either running Octillery or Inteleon, and then you got your Urshifu VMAX. That's a core. And it's the same thing going along with other decks. Single Strike has the Single Strike energy. The Houndoom to accelerate the energies. So when I mention core, think of the deck identity. And that's what's going to be the most important that goes with it. I have made a list of cards Pokemon that you should invest in if you haven't already. The most important thing I would like to mention is that Inteleon is in about 70% of the decks that are in the top meta right now. And it's a good reason. Sobble, Drizzle, Inteleon, they're so strong and make any deck work. The consistency of these cards makes attackers that usually wouldn't work. Your Sobble is so good, not just in regular decks, but in Rapid Strike decks. You can pull Urshifu, Medicham, any Rapid Strike Pokemon you can think of, you can bring it onto the bench. Key Calling is something that's very underrated, and a lot of people don't usually play it unless they have to. But if you can spare that extra turn, it's so important to play it. And we talked about Shady Dealings earlier. That allows you to get a trading card from your deck and put it into your hand. Well, Inteleon does that too, but just better. It gets you 2 trainer cards to put in your hand. So if you need that Boss's Orders, that Crushing Hammer, God forbid you get 2 Crushing Hammers, like stuff like that will allow you to win the game. And that's why it's always played. It's so consistent. And then we talk about the Rapid Strike Inteleon. For quick shitting, you get to put 2 damage counters on any Pokemon you want. That fixes math. And if you're not familiar with that term, if I'm going against, let's say, I'm using my Urshifu, Rapid Strike Urshifu, and I'm trying to knock out a Crobat, right? He's on the bench, I have Passimian. So I'm doing 150. Well, in order to knock him out, I need to do 180. I have 2 Rapid Strike Inteleons on my bench. I do the 40 damage, and I do the 150, that's 190. That's a knockout. So it fixes the math when you go along. And that's a very consistent line. 4 Sobble, 4 Drizzles, 1 Shady Dealing Inteleon, and 2 Rapid Strike Inteleons. That's a line I would buy, especially if you're new or trying to get into the game. This helps you be consistent, and you don't get as punished. So this is a very good line to start playing with, especially if you're going to make mistakes. This will help you out. And the other cards on the list, they're draw Pokemon. Kricketune V, Exciting Stage, allows you to draw 3 cards, up to 3 cards in your hand. If it's in the active, you can draw up to 4 to complete 4 cards in your hand. You have Gormandize, which is this one prizer. The Snorlax allows you to draw until you have 7 cards in your hand. Chinchino does make do. You discard 1 card and you draw 2 cards. So like a 2 for 1. Chinchino is mostly good for decks that want to discard cards, and you can see a lot of cards at the same time. If you have 3 Chinchinos in your hand on the bench, you could draw up to 6 cards. Yeah, you have to discard 3, but if you're playing something like Mad Party or Charizard, get rid of Leon's or Mad Party Pokemon, it's helping you out while seeing cards. It's a very strong Pokemon. And this is another card I suggest you get 4 of. And last but not least, Crobat V. I guarantee every deck that you play will always have a Crobat V. This is your, oh, I'm in trouble, I'm bricking, or I just have a quick ball and energy in my hand. Let me go grab that Crobat V and see more cards. So it's a very strong card. And for example, if you play it and you get a research, you can see up to 13 cards in one turn, which is huge. That's like almost 1/5 of your deck. Then we're going to talk about supporters. Like I mentioned earlier, research is just one of the many supporters you can have for your deck. I suggest getting a 4 of every copy of this card that's on this slide. 4 research, 4 Marnie, 4 Boss's Order, 4 Bruno, 4 Sonia, 4 Birdkeeper. These cards not only draw and search and gust, but they're so important to have multiple copies in your deck. You know, you run 2, 1 might be prized or 2 may be prized. It's happening. But if you're running 4, you consistently will start off with either one of these 3 that you choose. I like to run 4 research, 3 Marnies, and 2 boss. 3 boss depending. If I'm playing single strike, then I will only play 1 or 2. But if I don't have any gusting abilities, I'm playing 3 bosses. So these cards are very important. And here's some more supporters that I actually wanted to talk about as well. Bruno, on the top right corner, is very good for single prize cards. So decks that run single prize cards are more likely to get knocked out. But with Bruno, you get to shuffle your hand in your deck and see 7 new cards. That's really big. It's something you wouldn't really play in a VMAX deck or a V deck or with Pokemon that give out multiple prizes. But it's definitely very strong for single prizes because you're able to afford to lose those 1 or 2 turns. And Melanie, super strong. When this card first came out, no one really thought this card was going to be like super good. Like we knew it was good, but we didn't think it was going to be as good as they be in decks with no water Pokemon. That's how strong this deck is, or this card is. You know, and Zacian needs those pivots, and with those pivots, you need to draw cards, and you might as well play Birdkeeper, right? Birdkeeper's strong. It gets you out of the active. It puts you back in the active. Like, it's definitely a very underrated card. And Sonia allows you to look for 2 basic Pokemon or 2 basic energies. It's kind of situational, but when you need it, or you need a card with that effect, this card delivers the goods. And let's talk about items here. Items are not supporters, so you can play multiple per turn. And they usually apply an effect that's very important. When you play your Inteleon line, you're going to want quick balls, level balls, and evolution instance. Get 4 copies of every card except Air Balloon. Unless you're running multiple decks, then you might need 4 copies. But if you're only going to play 1 deck, 2 copies is fine with Air Balloon. But everything else, you need 4 copies of. I can't stress this enough. Pokemon search without Pokemon communication, you're heavily reliant on these cards. And when Ultra Ball comes out early next year, you might be able to, get rid of Quick Ball and then put Ultra Balls in, or even add Ultra Balls to the mix. It's your deck. You make it how you want it, and you don't want to be stuck with only 1 Pokemon when you have so many outs. So these item cards are very important. And right before we get to the friendly budget decks, the list that I've compiled together, I want to say that all the cards that we talked about so far, you're able to buy these trainer kits. If you're a veteran player, then you know what I'm talking about. If you're getting into the game, you don't know what I'm talking about. These trainer kits come with a pack of staple cards. Remember we talked about staples? Well, these trainer kits will have 2 of every supporter you need, 2 of every item card you need, energies, special energies, and it comes with packs. And my recommendation is buying 2 of those. That will give you a full playset of every card that you need to build a deck. They shouldn't be too expensive. They're $29.99, and that will guarantee you to be good until next rotation. So that's my advice for you doing that. And they also have level 2 decks. They're not the V decks that you see like Rayquaza or Noivern. They're like the Italian VMAX decks. And later on this month, they're coming out with Single Strike and Rapid Strike battle decks. So these decks are better than theme decks, and they have staples in it. Right? You could take this deck, modify it a little bit, and go into a tournament or your league and not get whooped. So those are definitely options you can do. Like my advice is be getting 2 battle decks and then 2 trainer kits, and you should be set. That way you got every card you need, every extra copy you need, and you'll be set. But if you don't want to do that and you only want to buy singles or money's a little tight, these are the friendly budget decks that I recommend. And the first thing we're going to talk about is Rapid Strike Malamar. For the low cost of $26.55, you can build this Rapid Strike Malamar deck. Malamar uses an attack called Rapid Strike Tentacles. It does 40 damage for every Rapid Strike card in your hand that you must reveal to your opponent and then shuffle it back from your deck. That doesn't sound like much, but when you get to mid to late game, when you start using Karina's Focus and Artillery for Rapid Search, you start getting more and more Rapid Strike cards in your hand. And remember, you're putting them back in your deck. So all the cards that are not Rapid Strike are getting discarded, used, and everything. And then you're drawing more Rapid Strike cards. It's a possibility to do up to 310 damage. When you Karina's Focus, scoop up Artillery's ability, Fog Crystal, you can add up to like 9 or 10 cards in your hand. You do so much damage. It's only $26. So it's definitely a budget-friendly option if you want to get into Pokemon. The next deck I'm going to talk about is Zacian V. Zacian V is one of the strongest V Pokemon in the game. And the deck is a little bit more pricier, but it's still under $50. Zacian V has the ability Intrepid Sword, which allows you to draw 3 cards, and if any of those are metal energies, you get to put that metal energy onto Zacian V. And with a format that's running rampant with VMAX Pokemon, you have Zamazenta sitting there waiting for you to nullify all those attacks with Dauntless Shield. Dauntless Shield doesn't allow damage from VMAX Pokemon to attack Zamazenta. And of course you have Oranguru with Primate Wisdom to allow you to put those metal energies in your hand to the top of your deck. And then you can Intrepid Sword, so you see where I'm going with this. A very, very intimidating thing to see is your opponent putting an energy on Zacian on the first turn. Intrepid Sword, now they have all 3 metal energies ready to do T30 next turn. It's very intimidating. Trust me, I get nervous sometimes. It's overall a strong deck. I wouldn't consider it nowhere near the top 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 decks, but it's a very friendly budget. It's very easy to use. It's good to learn with this deck. It teaches you how to sequence. Very strong deck overall. If you have $50 to spare, I would definitely start building this deck. And not only that, a lot of these cards have been printed into the ground, so you can literally find these cards anywhere. I've even seen Zacian V10s and Zamazenta V10s as of last week in store, so it's possible that you can get it from there. But I would definitely recommend this more than the Malamar deck, because Zacian V is very strong and can hold its own. And now we're going to talk about Rapid Strike Jumpluff. This card was introduced in Evolving Skies. It has the ability Fluffy Barrage that allows you to attack twice And as you see the other card on the screen, Rapid Strike Scroll of Swirls allows you to do 30 damage to all your opponent's Pokemon. So with Fluffy Barrage, you can do that twice, and you're doing 60 to the bench. This is very strong, very fast. Skiploom has the ability where when you put a Grass Energy onto that Pokemon, you have to look for evolution and bring out Jumpluff. So this is why I really love this. You set up all your Hoppips, you evolve them to Skiplooms, put a Grass Energy, evolve them, and then put a Rapid Strike Energy with the tool. You're doing 60 every turn, twice. Eventually that damage adds up. I prefer this deck with Urshifu in it, but for the sake of budgeting, this deck is only $36.52. It's a very good opportunity to learn how to play with the Rapid Strike engine, and this is why I recommend it more so than the Malamar deck, because this is more true to the Rapid Strike engine. And we're going to get into our next deck, Regidrago. Another card that came out in Evolving Skies that utilizes Eldegoss from Evolving Skies and Cherim from Battle Styles. At first glance, this doesn't seem like it's too crazy because of the crazy energy cost from 2 grass and 1 fire for Dragon Energy. Dragon Energy does 240 minus 20 damage for every damage counter that's on Regidrago. But when you pair it with Cottonlift with Eldegoss, looking for 2 basic energies, which are going to be grass, and then you mix that with Cherim Spring Bloom, you get to put as many grass energies to non-rule box Pokemon. Non-rule box meaning there's a rule box at the bottom of the card, for example, V's, VMAXs, Prism Stars, stuff like that. Anything that has a rule box, you cannot use Spring Bloom with. Luckily, Regidrago doesn't have that. So you can accelerate those 2 grass energies, put a fire energy, and do 240. And when the damage starts piling up on Regidrago, if it doesn't get knocked out, you can scoop up net, throw away those energies, use Training Court, use Cottonlift to get 2 more grass energies, Training Court for that fire energy, put it back on there, and then you're attacking again. 240 is not a joke. 240 can 2-shot a lot of Pokemon and 1-shot a lot of Pokemon V. This is why everyone was so hyped about Regidrago. It's a very strong deck. And if you don't want to get all messy with V's or pick a strike, a rapid strike, or a single strike, this is definitely a deck to pick up. Every card in this deck is probably no more than 75 cents. So it's definitely a really good budget deck. And if you really want to try something, I definitely recommend this one. And last but not least, this is a personal fave, and I decided to include this in the video because I'm a Single Strike fanboy. I love Single Strike with all my heart. And so when this card came out in Chilling Reign, I was very excited because Fist of Strife for 100 damage, and if you have any damage counters on you, you do another 100 damage. And you're obviously going to accelerate with Houndoom to give them a Single Strike energy. I wouldn't put 3, I'd put 1. You're doing 220. Crazy. So, like I said, 220, 240, same territory because you're still a 2-shotting. 220 is better than 240. Let's be honest. 220 can knock out all those V's with less than 220 HP. You might not get a Zacian, so you might want to opt in to put in another Single Strike energy. So that's the way to do it. But enough of that. This deck uses all of the Single Strike cards to its full potential. Unlike its cousin, Single Strike Urshifu VMAX, which has a set core that you can't change, right? The deck Single Strike VMAX is already inconsistent as it is. So when you start adding like Karen's Conviction and Welcoming Lantern, it starts to be less than the deck that we know and more Single Strike. And but this is why I like this one, right? One prizers abusing Bruno, abusing Karen's Conviction, doing 240. And just FYI, Karen's Conviction does 20 damage for every prize that your opponent has taken. So if your opponent has taken 5 prizes, you're doing an extra 100 damage. You're already doing 240 with this Urshifu plus 100. That's 340. You can knock out alternatives. That's a lot of damage. That's a lot of damage for $37.43. This is a very good budget deck, and this is my top tier recommendation that I added to this video. The other decks are well known, but a lot of people do not talk about this deck, and I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to bring it to light because I honestly believe if we had a tier list of budget decks, this would be tier 1 automatically. Tier S. I love this deck. This is a really good deck. You should try it out if you haven't tried it out. With my closing notes, I wanted to talk about a couple things. If you've only played in real life, try out PTCGO. That's where I test my decks. That's where I get cards that I usually can't get because I don't feel like waiting 14 days in the mail to buy singles. I test it online. And not only that, when I make a change, I can play someone right away. So for your deck building abilities, try out PTCGO if you haven't. Another thing is check out other content creators. I'm just starting out, so I don't have a pool of knowledge that you might be looking for right now. But a lot of content creators have been doing this since the whole beginning of the pandemic or even before. So people like Tricky Jim, Zach Lesage, Hot Chalk. If I didn't mention you, I'm not dissing you. But check them out. And once you get into a certain creator that you want to talk about or you want to watch, stick with them, because when a new deck comes out, everyone's going to try it. And you rather get the information from who you want it to come from. Instead of buying packs, your best bet is buying singles on TCG Player. I know sometimes you can find the cards cheaper on eBay, but the TCG Player has literally market values. And you can see what people has bought it for, and you can see when the peak goes up. If you're into numbers and everything like that, I definitely recommend buying your singles on TCG Player. For example, I need Gengar Vs and VMAXs, but I'm not going to buy any Fusion Strike packs. Now, if you want open packs, go for it. But I guarantee you buy 2-3 booster boxes, you're probably not going to get the card you want. So you can spend $60 on getting the cards you want, or you can spend $120 and get a booster box and not get anything you need. So that's up to you. My recommendation is buying singles. Checking out PokemonCard.io. PokemonCard.io is so good, as in when you're building decks and you're uploading it, you get automatic feedback from the community. That is something back in the day a lot of people couldn't do. A lot of people were scared to show off their secrets and everything, but I think this is very healthy for the community and very healthy for the game. When people start learning things, they start implementing different strategies and start making the game more diverse, and that's very important in card games. So definitely check PokemonCard.io out. I have a PokemonCard.io where I upload decks too. It's under Super Peeper 3, so go ahead and check that out. And the last thing I want to hit is, if you're having fun playing the game, you know, maybe pop out a camera, record it, have fun. This is a game that's supposed to be fun. Record footage, upload it on TikTok, upload it on Instagram, Twitter, and get more people involved. This is a hobby we want growing, not dying. And it's already hard enough as it is trying to get Pokemon cards in real life that people really can't get into it. So create content, let people know that, you know, we love to have fun. We want people to see us play. And a lot of people collect, but not a lot of people play. And that's what I want to focus my footage on, is getting people to see the fun in playing. Sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes you will lose all day. But at the end of the day, when you create your own deck and you win, it's rewarding. So remember, always have fun. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and soon to be Twitch. I will be streaming pretty soon, right before Single Strike comes out, to start getting used to it. And I would definitely love you to follow me. So hit me up on Super Peeper 3 on Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and talk with me. I'd love to talk. I'd love to talk about anything you want to talk about. If you're interested in this deck or this deck, any feedback, I'm here for you. I'm here to learn with you. And again, thank you for watching, and have a nice day.